Kong Country really was the 800-pound gorilla of 90s gaming. It burst onto the scene, made a bunch of noise, and punched you in the face with its eye-popping 3D graphics. It was pretty much impossible to walk past it playing on an in-store kiosk without doing a double take. It was a spectacle. And the crazy thing is, it was all running on a 16-bit machine that was nearing the end of its life. And not only did it help to extend the Super Nintendo's life, but it single-handedly brought Donkey Kong back from the brink of extinction and cemented a new legacy that has now endured for 25 years. Now, Donkey Kong Country wasn't the first game sold on the strength of its graphics, but it is one of the few to be remembered. Well, fondly. So what exactly is it about this game that will persist in our collective memory after all this time? At the end of the day, it was still just another pretty, well-playing platformer, right? Well, I think it goes quite a bit deeper. It was the immersion. Despite it being about a giant ape looking for his bananas, Donkey Kong Country elicited emotions and provided sensations that few of its peers did. But just as it takes a handful of bananas to make a banana bunch, so too are there multiple reasons for how Donkey Kong Country took immersion to the next level. From the very moment that DK bursts out of his treehouse, it's clear that this isn't your daddy's Donkey Kong, as the game's opening cinematic so gracefully illustrates. Donkey Kong Country looked like no game before. By using state-of-the-art SGI workstations, Rare was able to create hyper-realistic 3D models, which were then ported and downscaled in order to work on the Super Nintendo in the form of animated sprites. And the end result was nothing short of incredible. The rendering technology brought the worlds and characters to life in a way never before seen in a video game. Palm trees beamed in the sun, various plants casted shadows onto the ground below, and the characters moved with a sense of fluidity rarely seen before. It looked real, or at least more real than any non-FMV game up to that point. Consider this. In the Super Mario series, the levels look impossibly flat, as if he's jumping between a series of cardboard cutouts taken from a middle school play. Whereas in Donkey Kong Country, everything is depth and dimension. You can even see the physical path that DK walks on, placing him within the world rather than on top of it. It's almost as if the camera had finally broken free of its 2D shackles, giving a glimpse into a dimension that was still years away from being fully realized, let alone anywhere near this level of graphic fidelity. Donkey Kong Country offered the illusion of a 3D world within a 2D playspace. It was basically as if your Super Nintendo were running a Pixar movie in real time, only the year before Toy Story even came out. Yeah, it was the video game version of Toy Story before Toy Story. Incredible. And as with Toy Story, the exquisite animation breathes life into the 3D models. And having been keyframed on the computer, the characters move at a level of fluidity seldomly seen at that point in time. Whether it's walking, jumping, riding a steel keg, nearly falling, or any number of things, it all looked incredibly smooth. Just compare Mario's walking animation, which had 3 frames, to Donkey Kong's, which has 20. Heck, that nearly outnumbers every frame Super Mario had access to across his entire repertoire in Super Mario World, excluding power-ups. And every move of Donkey Kong's is animated at this level. It was truly absurd. In fact, there is no point where these characters aren't moving constantly. Every single creature, whether a Kong, Kremling, or Animal Buddy, is always doing something. Who's a good boy, Rambi? Who's a good boy? The characters truly felt alive, as if they were living, breathing creatures that existed within this world. And because they were pre-rendered on powerful computers, they even feature some amazing self-shadowing effects, which isn't something that would become commonplace until years later. It's impressive stuff. Now, there is one thing that Donkey Kong Country lacks compared to most games. Let me give you a hint. It involves the HUD. As in, there isn't one. There's no life counter, no point tally, and no health indicator. Or in other words, there are no distractions. You have an unobstructed view into a world that feels all the more tangible for it. The developers pulled this off by hiding everything until the moment that you need it, such as by having the banana counter appear on screen only when you collect one. And you don't need a health meter because Donkey Kong and Diddy Kong are the health meter, in that they can each take a hit each. So if you're missing a Kong, you know exactly where you stand. Now, the end result of not having a HUD results in a subtle but powerful effect, making the TV screen more of a window into a gorgeous world. While the state-of-the-art rendering technology brought a level of realism never before seen, it's backed up by a nearly unprecedented amount of detail, both big and small in scale. From the very moment you pop into the jungle, you feel its immensity. Palm trees tower overhead, with the jungle seemingly stretching out for miles behind them. And with the background being made up of 6 independent layers, it really sells the illusion that this is a massive jungle and you're right in the middle of it. A similar technique is used underwater, only this time with the ocean floor smoothly changing perspective as you swim around, lending depth to a backdrop that seemingly has no end. And when underground, columns come between you and the playing field, making it feel as if you're wading through the murky depths alongside Donkey and Diddy. The multiple background and foreground layers add as much to the atmosphere as they do the depth, such as the thick mist that obscures the action in the mines. But there's no better example of this than the snowstorm at Snow Barrel Blast. What starts off as a few distant snowflakes slowly morphs into a full-on blizzard. It feels oppressive and suffocating, heightening the tension, as well as the relief once you finally make your way out the other side. A similar feeling is created by the roaring thunderstorm in the game's second level. And in a neat touch, the lightning not only lights up the night sky, but also the entire world. It's a brilliant detail that makes the world feel dynamic, and it's not the only one. Whether it's flickering torches that light up temple alcoves, or swinging cavern lights that illuminate the nearby area. It all helps sell the idea that these are real places. And then there are the dynamic elements that suggest a passage of time, like how the sun sets over the course of the first world, which then leads into the thunderstorm of level 2, before clearing up as the morning sun rises toward the end. Every inch of this game is dripping with detail and atmosphere, sometimes literally. Do you hear that? That's life, my friend. The sound of the world at work. The ambiance in Donkey Kong Country was simply unmatched for its time, and it's the audio that really helps bring the visuals to life. From the moment DK blasts into the world, he's greeted not by a bombastic score, but by the sounds of wildlife. It pulls you into the world, as the sound of drums slowly get louder and louder, before finally transitioning into the track we all know and love. Part of what made the soundtrack so brilliant was how the composers wove environmental sounds into the tracks themselves. Whether it's the chirping birds of the jungle, or the creaking floorboards of a mine, or the dripping water in a damp cave. It added real texture to a virtual world. And even beyond just the sound effects, the very nature of the tracks themselves fit each environment perfectly. Consider how the music in the caves features a high amount of reverb, as if it were echoing through the hollows of a deep cavern. But the other part is that the compositions themselves are of insanely high quality, brought to life through sampled instruments that, like the pre-rendered visuals, lends an audible texture to the game world. Aquatic ambiance, true to its name, sets the stage for a calm yet unsettling underwater environment. And the Northern Hemisphere perfectly conveys a sense of isolation of being lost high up in a mountain. And it's seemingly timed to grow more and more intense alongside the snowfall. It feels lonely. And speaking of which, Donkey Kong didn't just look like an ape, he didn't just sound like an ape, he felt like an ape. Or how I might imagine an ape to feel anyway. Point is, DK was big and heavy, yet still nimble and fun. Diddy, by comparison, feels light and spry, like a monkey, but is deflected by enemies that DK can easily power through. Even the animal buddies convey a feeling that you'd expect. Rambi feels powerful, but also massive and is slow to build speed, whereas Ungar tears through water like a hot sword through butter. That's a saying, right? Even the physical structure of the worlds contributes to this feel. Consider how the physical path isn't flat like in most games. It's rough, being bumpy and changing elevation constantly, like you'd expect from a trail in the jungle or when spelunking. That even applies to the minecart tracks too, and how the minecart itself interacts with it, landing with a metallic thunk as sparks go flying. The game feels satisfying to control because it seems to have actual weight behind it. What I'm getting at is, Donkey Kong's world, or country I should say, has heft to it, as if everything has a real physical presence, befitting its 3D appearance. Barrels burst apart upon impact, sending wood fragments flying, and enemies don't disappear in a puff of smoke. Instead, they either fall out of the environment, or collapse in place in the case of bosses. And speaking of bosses... Okay, so hear me out. Yeah, I know Donkey Kong Country may not exactly have the most complex story. Dude had his bananas stolen and he just wants them back. But even the way that the game tells a simple story is executed excellently. Because even though the instruction manual lays it all out in detail, you don't have to read it to understand what's going on here, as it's pretty much all explained to you within the first few seconds. Let's break it down. Donkey Kong shoots out of his house, showing an extreme sense of urgency, and he lands directly next to the entrance into his banana hoard. If you head inside, you'll see that's been completely cleared out, and Donkey Kong isn't happy. We now instantly understand DK's panic. He wants his bananas back and now. And it's for this reason that every banana you collect along the way feels like a small step toward that goal. It contextualizes the main collectible in a way that few platformers do, effectively turning every banana into a breadcrumb leading you to the end. Now, just a few steps ahead, DK will soon hear the cries of his missing buddy emitting from a shaking barrel, presumably as a result of whoever stole the bananas. And after breaking Diddy free, it's time to set out on the adventure proper. Furthermore, each world's boss is standing guard over a giant pile of bananas, presumably safekeeping them until the main villain, King K. Rool, can return to collect them. And speaking of which, one of the cooler, more subtle touches is how you can actually see King K. Rool's ship slowly approaching on the world map, getting closer and closer the deeper into the adventure you progress. It brings a world map into the story, which is already operating at a level of unprecedented detail, with almost every level being physically represented on the map at the place you find it. It's some pretty cool stuff. Everything I've talked about so far, the 3D visuals, the detail, the sound, the feel, and even the story, all come together to form one of the most immersive experiences gaming has seen yet. This remarkable presentation is what allowed the otherwise bog-standard gameplay to shine, creating an experience that was unlike anything else at the time. And it was all pulled off in a tiny 16-bit box nearing the end of its life. It was an amazing experience at just the right time, and is exactly why Donkey Kong Country is still fondly remembered to this day, 25 years later. Hey, thanks for watching! If you enjoyed this video, make sure to check out our other Donkey Kong Country 25th anniversary coverage, including interviews with the original development staff. It's really good stuff. You'll find links to them in the description below. And with that, thanks for watching, and make sure to subscribe to GameXplain for more on the Donkey Kong Country series and everything else Nintendo too. We'll catch you later. Bye.